Over more than 2 centuries, their leadership, vision, and decisions have shaped America's story. This is the evolution of the presidents of the United States, from beginning to now. Washington is considered the first US president because he was unanimously elected after leading the nation to independence in the Revolutionary War. He defined the role from scratch, setting traditions like the 2-term limit and the peaceful transfer of power. A founding father and key voice for independence, Adams helped draft the Declaration of Independence. He was also the first president to live in the White House. Author of the Declaration of Independence, Jefferson doubled the nation's size with the Louisiana Purchase. He also founded the University of Virginia after his presidency. Known as the father of the Constitution, Madison helped shape America's founding documents. His presidency is remembered for leading the nation through the War of 1812. Monroe's presidency is marked by the Monroe Doctrine, declaring the Americas off-limits to European colonization. His era is often called the era of good feelings for its national unity. Son of John Adams, he was the first president whose father also held the office. After his presidency, he made history by serving in Congress for 17 years, fighting against slavery. A war hero from the Battle of New Orleans, Jackson was known as the People's President. His legacy is controversial, remembered for expanding democracy, but also for the forced removal of Native Americans. A skilled politician and founder of the Democratic Party, Van Buren's presidency was overshadowed by the Panic of 1837, one of the nation's worst economic crises. William Henry Harrison. Harrison served the shortest presidency in history, only 31 days, after catching pneumonia from delivering the longest inaugural address. His sudden death shocked the young nation. Tyler was the first vice president to take over the presidency after a president's death. He was so independent from his party that all his cabinet members but one resigned during his term. James K. Polk. Polk was known as the Manifest Destiny president, expanding US territory with the annexation of Texas, Oregon, and much of the Southwest. He served just 1 term, but achieved all his major goals. A war hero of the Mexican-American War, Taylor was elected without much political experience. His presidency was cut short when he died just 16 months into office. Millard Fillmore. Fillmore took office after Taylor's death and is remembered for signing the Compromise of 1850. The deal temporarily eased tensions over slavery, but also included the controversial Fugitive Slave Act. Pierce struggled as the nation grew more divided over slavery. His support for the Kansas-Nebraska Act deepened sectional conflict and pushed the country closer to civil war. Buchanan is often ranked among the weakest presidents. He failed to stop the southern states from seceding, leaving the looming crisis of civil war to his successor. Abraham Lincoln. Lincoln is remembered as the great emancipator, leading the Union through the Civil War and issuing the Emancipation Proclamation, beginning the process of ending slavery. He preserved the nation, but his presidency ended tragically with his assassination. Andrew Johnson. Johnson became president after Lincoln's assassination and faced fierce clashes with Congress over Reconstruction. He was the first US president to be impeached, though he narrowly avoided removal from office. A Civil War hero, Grant worked to stabilize the nation during Reconstruction and fought for civil rights for freed slaves. However, his presidency was marred by widespread corruption scandals in his administration. Hayes won one of the most disputed elections in history, resolved by the Compromise of 1877. He ended Reconstruction by pulling federal troops out of the South. Garfield served only a few months before being assassinated in 1881. His death helped push for major reforms in government hiring, leading to the modern civil service system. Arthur unexpectedly became president after Garfield's assassination. Though seen as a party insider, he surprised many by supporting civil service reform with the Pendleton Act. Cleveland was the first president to serve 2 non-consecutive terms, making him both the 22nd and 24th president. He was known for fighting government corruption and using the veto more than any president before him. Grandson of William Henry Harrison, he was remembered for signing the Sherman Antitrust Act to curb monopolies. His presidency also saw 6 new states join the Union. McKinley led the nation to victory in the Spanish-American War, gaining territories like Puerto Rico, Guam, and the Philippines. His presidency was cut short when he was assassinated in 1901. A larger-than-life figure, Roosevelt was known as the Trust Buster for breaking up big monopolies. He championed conservation, created national parks, and built the Panama Canal. Taft is the only person to serve as both US President and Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. Though less energetic than Roosevelt, he strengthened the judiciary and antitrust enforcement. Wilson led the nation through World War I and helped create the League of Nations. During his presidency, the 19th Amendment was passed, granting women the right to vote across the United States. Harding promised a return to normalcy after World War I, but his presidency is remembered for scandals like Teapot Dome. He died suddenly in office in 1923. Known as Silent Cap, Coolidge believed in limited government and oversaw the booming economy of the Roaring Twenties. He was admired for his honesty and restraint. Hoover was a successful businessman and humanitarian before becoming president. But when the Great Depression hit, his inability to fix the crisis defined his presidency. FDR led the nation through the Great Depression and World War II. Despite being paralyzed from polio, he inspired Americans with his optimism and leadership. His New Deal programs reshaped the economy, and he remains the only president elected to 4 terms. Truman made the fateful decision to use atomic bombs to end World War II. He later launched the Marshall Plan to rebuild Europe and led the US into the Korean War. A World War II hero, Eisenhower oversaw a time of prosperity and built the modern interstate highway system. He also sent federal troops to enforce school desegregation in Little Rock, Arkansas. Kennedy inspired a generation with his vision of a new frontier. His presidency saw the Cuban Missile Crisis, the push for civil rights, and ended tragically with his assassination. Johnson pushed through landmark civil rights legislation and launched the Great Society to fight poverty. But the Vietnam War overshadowed his presidency and deeply divided the country. Nixon opened relations with China and ended US involvement in Vietnam. However, the Watergate scandal led to his resignation, the first in American history. Ford pardoned former President Nixon in hopes of helping the country heal from Watergate. He oversaw the final end of US involvement in the Vietnam War and introduced the Whip Inflation Now campaign to combat swinging inflation. Reagan pushed for economic growth through tax cuts and reduced regulation, known as Reaganomics. He strengthened America's global stance during the Cold War, famously urging the Soviets to tear down this wall at the Berlin Wall. Bush led a successful coalition in the Gulf War and saw the fall of the Soviet Union. His presidency emphasized diplomacy and global cooperation, though a recession hurt his re-election. Clinton presided over the longest peacetime economic boom, balanced the federal budget, and signed NAFTA. But he was also only the second president ever impeached. Bush, son of George H.W. Bush, led America through the 9/11 attacks, responded with wars in Afghanistan and Iraq, and pushed major tax cuts and the No Child Left Behind Act. Donald Trump. Trump drove an America First agenda, cut taxes, tightened trade, and was impeached twice amid deep political divisions. Joe Biden. Biden steered the US through COVID-19, signed major relief bills, Climate Pact and pursued voting and gun safety reforms. In 2025, Donald Trump became the second US president to win non-consecutive terms. His new term is marked by bold executive actions, a revived America First agenda, and renewed clashes over immigration, trade, and executive power. That completes the evolution of every US president, from beginning until now. Which leader do you think made the biggest impact? Let me know in the